We've been discussing how, the real mission of Jesus, and that he wasn't coming here as a sacrifice, as a blood sacrifice. But nevertheless, I think the cross does bear a meaning in Christianity. And I think that although that wasn't the purpose, it wasn't, God the Father sacrificing his son, I think we can take a lot of wisdom, a lot of, things that we can take from the cross. So I want to just mention this real quick before we dive into this. But
Sure.
here's the meaning on the cross. The cross wasn't about appeasing wrath. It was about love, loyalty, and courage. Jesus faced injustice and sufferings not to pay a debt, but to prove that truth and love always win. Here's the real meaning of the cross and why it transforms lives today. Let's talk about this, Chris, and why is the sacrifice and the cross so relevant to us in our everyday struggle?
Yeah. And I think it's again going back and asking yourself, okay, because I don't want to take away from what people have. So let's just start with, let's assume you think that Jesus was a blood sacrifice. What he did was astounding anyway, right? An incredible level of love. If you, we can agree on that, whether you disagree with me or not on other things. And that's again, the revelation of the Father. And what's the highest love that you can give anyone? To die for your friends. Guess what? Jesus died for his enemies. Let's start there. No matter what you think about what I said today, that's the incredible. So what is the real meaning of the death on the cross? Well, Jesus threatened a political structure. And the final straw was he threatened the finances of the Sadducees and the Pharisees by clearing, right, the temple of the money changers, commerce. So they were out. So why did he die on the cross? He threatened the human political and religious interest. That's why.
So relevant today as well,
Absolutely. So think of the death on the cross, and this is something that's in, the Urantia book we talked about. Incredible write-up on this, but the real meaning of the death of the cross is the full revelation of the absolute fatherly love of God. That's what Jesus revealed. Remember, he is a revelation. The way he lived his life, the things he did, it's a revelation of the Father. Not the words he said. He's not like quoting the Father. When you hear Jesus, you don't hear the Father. You hear Jesus' interpretation of the truth from the Father. So the cross is the full revelation of devotion and love of the Father. So that's unconditional. That's total forgiveness. That is giving you exactly what you need, when you need it, in the way you need it, where you need it, for as long as you need it. God, it's God, it's a revelation of God's total willingness to help you, no matter what he has to go through or his sacrifices. That's incredible.
That's interesting.
That was always, we have to understand, that love was always there from the earliest times of human beings through all the people in the Bible, always there. We have to remember, Jesus is a new revelation. If Jesus didn't come, you would still be able to have a spiritual experience and find salvation in the Father, in God. But what Jesus did was he made that way very clear, and he gave us a full revelation of God. That's what he did. He stripped away those things, as we said, as a teacher, and he experienced the life that we have. So that, the cross, it's an incredible revelation of the love that God gives us. And we know that crucifixion was a remarkably, excruciatingly painful death. It was designed to be that way. And yet he held himself. He didn't insult people. He worked
That's
on the
what's so
spiritual.
astounding.
Yeah, the
That
spiritual
way
part.
he retook it. What you're saying and his role, Jesus's role in what we were saying at the beginning of maintaining the will of the Father, and finally the will of the Father is that all my creation, all even mortals have free will. And I can't, even my will, which is the first will, I believe, cannot interfere with your free will. And that's what Jesus ascribes to. He can't, even if he has all the power to free himself from his captors and avoid that death, he embraces it and he takes it full-heartedly. And even in spite of, knowing the pain that he was going to go through, he embraced it, and he transcended it, and we were talking about the faith. That sublime faith he had when he took his death is, I think the most important part of everything.
I love that. Yeah, and that's it's again, it's based on a spiritual relationship with the Father. That you may think of God as a mother. That's fine. I'm not trying to rip away but Jesus taught about a father, not a man, but a God that takes the role of the best loving father you can think of. There and the Urantia book talks about God the Mother too, and God the Spirit. So, but Jesus taught God the Father, and it is really astounding, and it's based on what it gets back to the whole model of salvation. And I hope, am I jumping ahead? I don't think so, because we're
No,
going to talk
no,
about
no
spirit
worry,
of
no
truth.
worry.
I know later, but so what we've done here is we've talked about, okay, misconceptions about Jesus, who he was, why he was here, the mission. Okay, so now we know he's here to reveal the Father, experience this life, and give us right his ideal teachings. Um, but again, so if you look at his life, remember, we can experience God to our capacity, our capability, just as he did. And what's the gateway? Faith. Jesus said, all
Faith.
you need to open the door is faith. And what are the parts of that faith? There are two parts of the faith. You have to be sincere in wanting to know God, wanting to grow, sincerity, and the other one is truth, hunger. Hunger.
Hmm.
I am sincere in wanting to know God. I'm hungry, and I'm hungry for the truth. Those are the two key components of faith. All that's needed is faith. But once you open
Hmm.
your mind, now it's time to live for the benefit of others and dedicate your life as Jesus did to doing the Creator's will, to following God's will. And that to me, that's the full revelation of his unconditional, unselfish love to other human beings. That if you do that, God's going to give you the best way, the inspiration, the power to love others and serve them effectively. Because the religion of Jesus is a religion of self-forgetful service, not endless introspection. It's serving others, which he did, and that's the full meaning of I think, the death on the cross.
Thanks for that explanation and the way that you put it on the love of God and what the cross represents. And I think this is very important because we all in some point have said, I'm bearing a cross, or the cross I have to bear, and I think that one of the things that we've understand, or at least I've understood from life, is that life isn't just a walk in the park. Life has a lot of difficulties. Life has a lot of growth that you have to, you were just saying that you have to hunger for that, and you have to be willing, and you have to be truthful, and you have to be yeah, you have to cut the BS with yourself. You have to be the more sincere you are with yourself, the more you're gonna grow. But that's something that I've always, well, not always, but as I've gotten older, come to appreciate about the cross. About the sacrifices and the struggles. That we have to go, like Jesus did, from uh, Pilate's. I think that's where they started the procession all the way to his crucifixion. He carried that cross, and he did it in a way where he knew his fate. So I really like that, because you can take the strength of Jesus in that moment and use them for those difficult times in your life, and it's like magic, and that has happened to me. Your suffering, it doesn't disappear, but it soothes. There's a soothing in there that really happens. I don't know if I'm making sense, or if you've experienced something like this, Chris.
No, yeah, and that's going to be a segue into the spirit of truth section. But which that's a great segue. You designed this podcast well today. But yeah, it's remember, I get back to, if it's all our assumption of God. If you assume that God is more than you can imagine, a loving divine parent, you might not understand why bad things happen to people sometimes, constantly, why you don't you go through pain and suffering in your life, etc. If you can just trust in the inner experience, then
Yeah.
whatever you're facing, God is going to remove all of your fear, all of your anxiety, all of your lack of energy. you will be energized and confident. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're on medication or you're getting psychiatric help that you should get rid of that. No, no, no. Keep that's not
Yeah.
what we're saying, but
Yeah.
add to it the experience of God and feel the joy of growth because it's growth can only be experienced when you are 100% giving yourself to the process in partnership with God and forgetting yourself. I've heard a saying of, it's out of the Urantia book. I'm going to paraphrase, but it's
Please.
basically you can do as many things. You can do many things as easily as one if you leave yourself out. If you're self-forgetful, if you're not constantly thinking about, ooh, can I do this? Ooh, what's going to happen if I do this? What does this mean for my life? They say it's the self-involvement that exhausts you,
Yeah.
not the effort. So, and Jesus was the exemplification of that. Just
That
completely
is so true,
self-forgetful.
Chris.
Yeah.
That is so true. When you do things, regardless and without looking for merit or, recognition or whatnot, you do it lovingly and you don't even, it's not even hard, it comes easily. Like you said, it's when you try to get that self-aggrandizement or, benefit for you that it makes it difficult. And you try to, I don't know, it's like energy you're trying to pull to yourself that you can't, right?
I love it. Yeah, but a lot of it is just anxiety. Many times in your life, you're like, how am I going to get all that done? How am I going to get it done? Is it going to be good? What are people going to think about it? It's all based on fear and ego. Once you allow yourself to be in the consciousness of God, you're at a new vibration and you are above that basic animal instinct. And that's what de-energizes you. If you can stay at the God level, then you can truly forget yourself.
Yeah, and anything, and it's like miracles. Things start to happen without you really,
Mhm.
pushing them, or it just falls into a
Hmm.
sequence or into a I want to say a melody of the universe.
Hmm.
You start playing the melody of the universe instead of going against it, and suddenly everything starts to sound better.
I love that's beautiful. That's really nice. Well, I mean, again, it gets back to our conception of God. Well, Jesus lived his life this way, obviously. His sole technique was to immerse himself in God, the Father, and do exactly what God wanted him to do. And that was it. Absolute, total trust of a child, getting back to those gospel essentials, total faith. That's it. And then just going forward to trust that, you know, the creator has a plan for the entire universe and you were created to be part of that. You have your own little plan that he has for you. You have unique gifts, talents, situation in life, all of that. And that's all to be part of that plan. So it's already been laid out. So like you said, if we're off track, if we're in an area that we shouldn't be in, then that means that we're not over here where we're going to get what we need because it's all been arranged. Everything has already been arranged. It's just
Exactly.
when we get there. I'm going over here and then I get over here and I think, that's amazing. Wow, I got just what I needed at the right moment. Well, maybe I could have been there 5 years ago. I don't know, but it's that path is still.
That's true. That's
And the other
true.
thing is the Father loves us so much and has such an amazing destiny that everything you will need for eternity has already been arranged. Everything.
That's beautiful because it becomes a matter of discovering that person that you are, that being, not even person, that being, universal and eternal being that you're discovering, and that's why when you say what's God's will, that is God's will. When you suddenly realize that the best thing that you can do is to follow His will, because that will transform you and perfect you. And that's when you start to discover these attributes, and like you're saying, it's everything was laid out. That's when you start to discover this path, and you start living this path.
Beautiful. I saw something on Facebook and it was a postings one of my friends had. And on one side, it had a flower and it says, plans you make for your life. And it's just one flower. And then on the other side, it had many, many, many flowers that says God's plan for you. And it's true. It's just everything that you can imagine what is there. And it doesn't mean that we are slaves. It doesn't mean that we're robots. So this whole thing about a lot of people have great resistance to the idea that we have to follow the will of God. If you're not following the will of God, what are you doing? You're going with your limited human knowledge your instincts, your desires purely, and that's human. But God does have a plan for you, and I think sometimes that will of God is very, very specific. Like, I want you to become a salesman. I don't know. I want you to become a nurse, or it could be very general. I want you to be a better person. I want you to be kinder. It's just the adventure of discovering that.
But it is an adventure, and I think that's the key. And you touched, I mean, closing this segment and going
Yeah.
into the next one, which I think is very important, because you were saying about the hunger that we have to have in order to find truth, in order to do this. I mean, there was I'm also paraphrasing, but there's a saying, that the seas or the depths of the ocean cannot be explored from the safety of the shore. You have to
Right.
go into the abyss, into you know far away from land that you don't see it, and you have to trust in God, and you have to deposit that trust.
On the Divine Within podcast, we share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.